Good morning, everyone, and happy Friday. So far this morning, we're starting to see the market sell off just a little bit. We're seeing Bitcoin and Ethereum tank really hard. Some really bad news came out of China. They're basically like banning cryptocurrencies, and obviously that's not good at all for Bitcoin and Ethereum and basically any other crypto. On top of that, like Robinhood stock and Coinbase was also starting to fall. Remember, like Robinhood was running up earlier in the week because of that crypto news they had, so they're taking a little bit of a beating to start the day. And either way, the market had a great day yesterday, and with the combination of a little bit of taking profits and a little bit of bad news from China, we're seeing the market down so far.
Yeah, it's down so far, and it is kind of bouncing off this 441 support. We've actually this morning in pre-market bounced off this level like 3 times. So hopefully we can end up holding 441 today, and we might get a nice bounce back to the upside at open. I know lately, Mike, we've been seeing a lot of situations where the market's been going up in pre-market and then down at open. So I'm kind of glad to see the opposite at this point. I think we might see it go down in pre-market and then maybe fly up here at open, and we'll just have to see how it ends up moving. But overall, this news out of China with Bitcoin is pretty scary, Mike. They're pretty much, saying that all cryptocurrency activity is illegal, and that's a pretty big statement from such a large country like China. I know that they've been cracking down on this for a while now, but man, to say that every Bitcoin related activity or every crypto related activity that is illegal, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I wonder like how much of Bitcoin and how much of Ethereum is owned by China. You know what I mean? Like I know that China had a huge influence in like the mining operations and like the mining side of it, but I'm curious like how much they own because, if it's illegal to own Bitcoin or Ethereum, I would expect more selling pressure to come over the next couple weeks as they, have to get rid of their their holdings.
Yeah, for sure. And who knows, maybe the government will just hold their holdings and just leave them to be. But I know that they definitely don't want the public having it. That's their main concern. And it's just a pretty bad situation for Bitcoin overall. And we're all the way back down to those lows of a couple days ago around $40,000. Looks like we're approaching that. And I could see us maybe testing 40K at some point today. Looks like we are really holding up around 40,800 though. So maybe that'll be the bottom. But overall, this news is terrible. And guys, let me know in the chat how you guys feel about this news with Bitcoin. Has China been making you angry with their regulations against Bitcoin, or are you kind of with China? Let us know in the comments. It'll be pretty interesting to hear.
All right, and thank you guys so much for joining. So welcome Alex, the other Alex, Jamie, Gabriel, Mac, Rome, and Vicky. Thank you guys so much for joining so far today. We have Rome coming in saying, would today be a good day to take some plays on the VIX to leverage? So VXX, it could be a good hedge play. It just depends on your portfolio. So for example, if you're holding a bunch of stocks that are not correlated to the market at all, then it would not be a good hedge play. But if you're holding stocks that move with the market, it can be a great play to hedge your portfolio. I made a video on the main channel, I believe this past Saturday. It's called How to Protect Your Portfolio. And it goes over a lot of cool tricks and strategies when it comes to hedging. So I definitely recommend taking a look at that. It's like 7 or 6 minutes long. It's pretty useful. But long story short, yes, VXX could be a good hedge play. You just have to make sure that you have exposure to the S&P 500.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be the big thing, is that exposure to the overall market is going to be what you want to have before you just start getting into these. Because if you don't have any exposure and you just start buying VIX, you're just pretty much just shorting the market, and the market generally goes up. So if this dip starts getting bought back up, that could hurt you pretty bad. And, so far today, we're kind of seeing mixed opinions or mixed movement across the board. We're seeing a lot of stocks actually gap down, kind of like Apple and Microsoft today. Overall, it's not looking too good to start the day, but we are seeing Microsoft try to come back up at open. Looks like Apple isn't really making that huge push, but they're definitely trying here.
Good stuff and great input, Tom. We have Garrett saying definitely against China. I'm with you, Garrett. Santiago said, good morning, Mike and Tom. Thanks for joining. Max said, truly has been kind of tough being a hungry bear lately. Made an overnight play on SPY puts, though. There we go. It's good to see that you capitalized off of those puts. But, yeah, I know what you mean, though. I know that We saw a decent market fall down like over the past month or so, but besides that, that's really been it. The market's been going straight up for the past almost like 2 years now. So it's there's just a lot of momentum, and it's definitely been a tough couple years to be a bear. But in situations like that, there's always ways you can like improvise. Maybe if you want to be a bull for a little bit, that could be great. But even if you don't want to be, there's smart ways to hedge in certain market conditions. So good stuff there. So yeah, I mean, looking at my watch list so far, Tom, RCL is leading the way to the upside. I know Cruise Lines had a great day yesterday, and if we look at RCL, they're up 1.5% today, and they're looking pretty good.
Yeah, they're kind of continuing that push to the upside. CCL is actually leading my watch list just because RCL actually isn't even on there. But looking at it, RCL is popping up so nicely, up 1.6%. That's an awesome move. And I'm so glad to see it breaking that high of yesterday. We really were looking at this as it started to break out of this channel that it was in for almost a whole month straight from around August 24th all the way till right around September 22nd when we started to break out. So almost a whole month of consolidation there, finally breaking out. And we are getting really close to this $90 resistance. So be really careful of that. But I love the way we're breaking out here. And I love the continuation out of this stock. Like I said, though, we're getting so close to that big resistance around 90. Be really careful of a turnaround today. And like I said earlier, CCL is having a pretty good day too. They had earnings this morning, and it looks like their earnings conference call is coming up pretty soon. So we'll have to see what they talk about there. But so far, it's actually pushing these stocks to the upside, which is nice.
Love to see it. And then, sadly, there are definitely more stocks red today than green. Palantir is getting demolished. Well, it's not getting demolished. It's down like 2%, but it's still a decent move. But then again, they had like such a great day yesterday where I guess it's all right.
Yeah, and the bad thing is that they kind of gapped down today in pre-market, and I don't know what's going on with the overall market right now, but we saw that with just about everything. Like you can see Apple had that pre-market gap to the downside. Microsoft even had a gap. I mean, Boeing, I'm sure, had one. Boeing had one, but look at Boeing actually coming back. They're actually looking pretty strong, Mike.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, Boeing's coming back. CCL is rocketing up. RCL is rocketing up. I know that CCL just reported earnings, and the market definitely seems to like it. So I'll definitely take it. And I've been waiting for these cruise lines to pop for a while, so I'm glad to see it. Besides that, like you mentioned, Boeing's coming back up. Run's coming up. AbbVie's having a decent bounce. We have Alex saying, can you look at CHPT for the day? Absolutely. So let's take a look. CHPT, not looking the best so far. Down like 2%. They are right at this $20 support, so hopefully it holds that. But it's definitely not looking the best as of right now.
Yeah, and we've been sitting here for a long time now, and it would be a really bad scenario to see it kind of break that support to the downside. So I'm really hoping that we end up holding over the next couple of days, right around $20 or $19. I think if we hold, it'll be a pretty decent move back to the upside, but it's pretty scary. I would say intraday today, I would just look for more of like a bearish position to the downside, or maybe just not even play it, because you're getting down towards some of these supports, like right around $20 and $20.10. And you might see a little bounce back up. So right now, I think CHPT might be one of the harder stocks to trade, but I think you can get some good opportunities out of stocks like CCL or something if you see them keep running up later on.
All right, and then we have Justin saying, good morning. Any other thoughts on UPST? So the stock that just goes up every day. Let's take a look. So it's actually down today, at least for right now, down 1.75%. It's just like holding that 330 support. Justin, this stock reminds me so much of Home Depot, Redfin, and then Target from like over the past couple years. Basically, those stocks went on like multi-month runs. And like every time you think they'd fall, they just kept on going up. So long story short, in setups like these, I've learned like to just wait until the tide turns. And right now, it looks like we're starting to see a slowdown in movement, which could be good. But I think the most important thing with this one, out of everything else, out of timing, out of everything, will be the quality of the option you select. Keep in mind, this is a $330 stock, and its options are not cheap. And half the money put costs like $2,000. So I would say more than anything else, you have to make sure that you get like a quality option. So either make sure you have a good amount of time, or make sure you're very close to the money.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And just pointing out what happened a couple days ago, we saw this stock tank down. It opened very drastically, and it looked like it might have finally been time to, grab some UPST shorts, but it just came rocketing back up. And then the next day broke out to new highs again. So you got to be really careful with this one. Mike and I have been talking about it a lot privately too. And, we're just waiting to see a couple good red days before we finally start looking at this to the downside, kind of like what we saw back here at the beginning of June. You started to see some actual red days come in, like 4 in a row, which showed that there was some pretty good downwards momentum there. And I feel like we might start to see something similar to that pretty soon, but you can never be too early with this one. Or it's always bad to be too early with this. Don't be too early. It's always better to wait a little while longer and just really confirm that the stock's in that downwards trend.
All right, good morning, Mike, and thanks for joining the stream. Looking at the market overall to start the day, we are in the red by 0.1%. The SPY is having a great recovery back up. A huge bounce right from open, which is good to see. If we look at the QQQ, it is down around 0.5%. It's still coming back up, but not quite as much as the SPY itself. Apple's in the red a little bit, so definitely starting off the day red, but it's good to see the movement back to the upside.
Yeah, I think it's great to see too. And it looks like SPY is going to end up holding that 441 support that we posted today in pre-market, and looks like a pretty good move back up today. And I'm not sure if we'll be able to break out above 444 or not. That's a pretty big resistance there. But man, I'm glad to see the market going up, especially with this China Bitcoin news. I was a little bit worried, I should say, about this Bitcoin news affecting the overall market, but it looks like right now it's just affecting Bitcoin stocks like Mara, Riot, Coinbase, stocks like that. But it looks like these stocks are getting a nice little push back to the upside. And I wonder, it looks like actually on Bitcoin's chart, Mike, Bitcoin's actually getting a push back up. And I know that China news was terrible, but at least we're getting some good upwards momentum here now that the US market opened.
Yep. So Maine said, good morning. What did I miss? I would say the main thing to take away from everything so far is the huge China news, like basically banning cryptos and how that initially affected the market, but more importantly affected stocks like Coinbase and Robinhood. So that's the main thing. I definitely check out like an article really quickly on just what's going on with China and cryptocurrencies. It should be like the top news article on CNBC. So definitely check that out. Palantir's trying to come back up a little bit. Looking at Square, Tom, I had this one on my watch list. It's down like 2.5% on the day. We could see over the past couple months, it's just been going back and forth, back and forth. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it actually looks pretty bad today, Mike, and it's turning over pretty drastically. Looks like it bounced off of some of these resistances up here. Like it fell through that 266 support, and just ever since then has just looked pretty bad. It's actually bounced right off the 100 SMA here on the 5-minute at open, which is generally not a good sign. That wick just barely touched that SMA line, and then we went straight down. So far, not looking good for Square, but I like Square for the long term. And, one other thing with Square is that I know they're a little bit affected by Bitcoin as well. And I know that Square, they've been doing a lot with Bitcoin the past couple of years. So that probably has a big influence on them right now. And I'd be really careful with them, but I like them for the long term. It's just right now they're on the daily, they're getting close to all these big resistances and everything. So it's a little scary to trade intraday today, but I feel like it could have some good potential for the next few days or maybe for the next couple months.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, we have Johnny saying, good morning, Mike and Tom. Thoughts on Roku? So I saw that they were down initially in this morning. I saw news that they got downgraded, or they were so it looks like they got downgraded. Their price target is now set to 350. Initially, it was higher. Initially, it was at 488. So it's bad to see. They got downgraded by Wells Fargo. So it looks like they're just having a bad day off of that so far. They are at a pretty big support area, though. So I think it looks decent for a dip buy, but only if you're willing to hold it for, maybe like a couple months or so.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing is the time on this one. It's going to take a little while. And Roku, I feel like, has done decent the past few years. It's just this downtrend is definitely not good. They had that huge double top up there around 500, which is never a good technical sign. And hopefully it ends up holding this 300 support. If we break through that, I'll be a little bit more scared of it. But I feel like I'm with you, Mike. If you buy shares right now for the long term and you hold it for at least like 6 months to a couple years, I think it'll end up being pretty good. But in the short term, I feel like this one could keep going down possibly. It definitely looks like it could with that double top up there.
All right, and then we have Maine saying AFRM looking great. Thoughts? So Tom, what are you thinking with this one? I know it was just going crazy yesterday.
Yeah, I'm actually really hoping it can continue, kind of like with what we're seeing right now. I think it's a pretty good opportunity in the market if you can get into if you can time it correct and you get into the correct day trade with this one. I think it'll be great. I don't really like swinging it too much unless you're timing it perfectly on one of these dips or something like that. But for right now, it has a lot of momentum to the upside. I really hope it can continue because at open, it flew up and it broke that high and it's kind of consolidating now. But I'd really like to see a solid breakout. And right now, it's just kind of faking everybody out. So if we go back up and we break 133.17 back to the upside, I think that would be great news, especially with what happened with Walmart yesterday and then Amazon a couple weeks ago. Like, man, those are two huge companies. And when you get deals with those types of companies, it's definitely going to help you. And especially with what this company does, they're almost like a credit card company in a way. And in a way, that's pretty smart. That's a pretty smart business idea. So I hope they end up doing pretty well. And I could see them kind of continuing. But this the way they're pulling back here on the 1 minute is a little bit scary, but they could easily continue up later on.
I mean, the thing is, like, they have a very unique business model. I feel like they don't have like too many major competitors just yet. And at the end of the day, when you're getting deals with Amazon and Walmart, like, that's huge. So they're doing great, and there is like a lot of momentum with them. Just one thing to really keep in mind is the market adjusts for this hype. So for example, when we have the stock exploding to the upside, we can see on Tom's chart right now the implied volatility also exploded right when that Walmart news came out. So even if you think like, all right, the stock's going to be more volatile, the market is already expecting that. So like the options get more expensive. So you just have to be careful to not buy bad quality options because it could be really bad. So either way, it has a lot of momentum. I like the setup for short-term trades, but please be careful playing options on it because the implied volatility is rising a decent amount. And then
yeah, definitely. And whenever you're looking at it, I feel like shares could almost be a good way to go. I mean, yesterday with the way the news went, I mean, I know it's a pretty high price stock, but that was a pretty nice 10% rise yesterday. That's not bad at all for a stock that costs $100.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like it'll be a good long-term hold too.
Yeah, me too. It's a good business model. And like you said, not too many competitors. And I was looking on some of those websites yesterday whenever we were testing these out, and those interest rates at 15% are so much better than if people were throwing these things on credit cards. Like, honestly, like if you don't go with AFRM, you're kind of making a dumb choice there.
All right. Then we have R saying thoughts on FRSH. So let's take a look. FRSH. It is down a little bit today. To be honest, I have never heard of this company before. It looks like they recently IPO'd. There isn't a ton of chart data to work with, so I'm neutral on it. Like I said, I never heard of this one.
Yeah, I've never heard of it either, but I just saw a report on MarketWatch that says Freshworks stock jumps 32% after their IPO raised more than $1 billion. So that's pretty good to hear from a fresh IPO. And hey, at least they had a great opening whenever they first came on the market. Looks like it is kind of consolidating right now, but like Mike said, I haven't really heard of it, but we'll definitely have to look into it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking into it right now. It looks like so they're definitely a software company. It says they are a leading provider of SaaS solutions that solve multiple and complex business problems for companies of all sizes. So, I mean, it looks very interesting. I'll definitely look into them more, and I don't know, it's very interesting. So thanks for sharing that. And let's get back into the Thinkorswim really quick. So Tom, I'm looking at my watch list right now. It looks like we're seeing these China stocks take a bit of a beating today. BABA's down 3.5%, and they're actually making like new yearly lows actually.
Yeah, they actually broke that 150 support. And guys, this is so key with BABA right now. This is terrible. And Mike and I have gotten so many questions lately about if BABA's at a good level to buy right now for the long term and for the short term. But man, it's this China news is so bad. Now they're coming out with this Bitcoin stuff, and it's really sending BABA to the downside. This is just honestly really bad to see. BABA fell through that 150 support, and it looks like they're going to be going a little bit lower here. I see a next support coming up right around like 129 to 130. I'd say like right around 130. So, man, I could see it going all the way down to there. And it's just a terrible break to the downside. They've had all this bad news going on and everything. So it's unfortunate to see. And I feel like BABA and some of these China stocks are just so risky right now with the way China's been, and especially with the way the tensions are with the US. It's just not a good place, and it's definitely not good for the stocks right now.
Yeah, and then even Nvidia's taking a bit of a beating. We look at that one down 2.5% on the day. IV's creeping up as well.
That actually makes some sense, Mike, because NVIDIA and AMD are actually so crucial in the Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency mining and stuff like that. Their graphics cards are, well, they're pretty much like the only two graphics cards companies on the market. So whenever you're looking at Bitcoin and stuff fall, I'm not surprised to see NVIDIA and stuff going down. And with how drastic NVIDIA is dropping, that makes me really think, Mike, that maybe this really is moving off this China news. And I would not be surprised if it is. It looks like NVIDIA is falling through that 220 support right now. And just honestly, this is a pretty bad move, Mike, out of such a strong stock.
Yep. All right, we have main stocks selling off again. So SPY, yeah, it's now down 0.3%. And yeah, it's definitely taking a little bit of a beating today. UVXY is slightly in the green. The VXX is in the green by 0.5%. So yeah, it looks like we're definitely in for a big moving day, we can say. UPST is retesting that support at 325, so that's one to definitely keep on your radar. I can see this one selling off, but then again, it's been looking like that for the past month. So
yeah, and we just saw that a day ago or something where it sold off so drastically and then came right back. But I'm with you, Mike. I think I'm finally looking at this one to the downside, and if we see some technicals hold up, maybe for the rest of today, heading into Monday, I think it could honestly make for a pretty good trade to the downside, maybe next week or something. But we definitely need to see how this ends up going, because it could still rocket right back up.
Yep, good stuff. So looking at everything, definitely more red than green. Square's down, Palantir's down, Redfin, Neo, everything's down today. For the most
look
part.
at CRM actually.
Let's see. Oh, wow. Yeah, they're booming. Wow.
What's up with this? That was a huge move yesterday, and then they're actually at all-time highs now.
Yeah, they are definitely exploding up. They have a ton of momentum. They also had their price target raised. Lots of upgrades this morning. Yeah, they had a bunch of upgrades this morning. Wow. So definitely keep this one on your radar. It's like basically the only stock moving with like good momentum to the upside right now.
Yeah, and I saw something that said that one stock that just IPO'd called FRSH is actually a pretty, like, they're going to be a rival to CRM. So who knows if this stock could be as good as CRM, that would be amazing. But wow, I mean, CRM is really popping up today at all-time highs. And Mike, I know people have been really bullish on this software company for a long time. And, it just goes to show that in the future, I think that these software and AI companies and stuff are going to be the rulers of the market pretty soon.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And then we have Jorge saying LMT is up. Let's take a look. LMT, yeah, they're looking great today, up 2.5%. It's great to see that. They've been kind of moving with Boeing, which is good. Boeing's not up as much today, but hey, they're both looking pretty good. Lockheed has a good amount of momentum right now, and it looks like recently they raised their quarterly dividend and boost their share buyback authorization. So they're going to be buying back what looks to be like $5 billion of their stock, and they raised their dividend by 8%. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's actually really good news, Mike. And they're bouncing right on previous supports, right around 340. And it looks like a pretty good move to the upside. And, this is more of a slow and steady stock. Don't expect it to just fly up or anything. I know I played it to the upside. Last time it touched 340, I ended up exiting around 370, which ended up being a pretty good trade there. And who knows, we might be able to get a nice bounce from 340 back up to 370-ish again pretty soon. But honestly, I think it's just in a great spot for the long term, especially with that dividend raise and everything. You can see it was $2.60 a share. Now it's $2.80 a share. So that raise is pretty good, and hopefully that brings more buyers into the stock.
Right, and then we have Max saying Bank of America is looking pretty nice. Let's take a look. BAC. So yeah, they're up like 1% or so. I saw that like rates were rising a little bit. TLT was falling. So yeah, that could definitely be good for bank stocks. Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman's not doing anything, but the other bank stocks are doing pretty good.
Yeah, hopefully Goldman kind of gets back into the swing of things and gets back up there because they were powerhouses for a long time. But yeah, JPM and Bank of America are looking great today. And I love the way they're really moving up above yesterday's highs. I know they've had such great moves ever since Powell talked, and he really helped these banks out. I think that the banks, I think they must secretly like the rates staying low, Mike. It sounds like it, anyways. They keep flying up every time Powell talks about that they're going to keep rates steady for the next year.
Yeah, true. And then we have Iran saying Facebook green. So that's good to see. Oh, well, it was green. Now it's red. It's bouncing pretty well off of that support right around $342.50. It's kind of stuck in the channel between $342.50 and then like right around that $350 area.
Yeah, and I actually just had Facebook this week actually fall below this key long-term blue trend line, and we actually stayed above this trend line for quite a few months, for almost like 6 months, it looks like. And now we finally fell below it to the downside. And with the way the overall market's looking, I would not be surprised if Facebook kept going down, but we'll have to see what happens. You know, if the SPY gets bought back up and we keep seeing these tech stocks rip back to the upside, then I think Facebook will probably come up with them. But, you know, if we see the market start to pull back with the way Facebook broke these technicals, I would not be surprised to see it go down.
Alrighty, so looking at everything, still more red than green. We have Zoom also breaking lows, Tom. I don't know if you saw this one, but it's looking pretty scary.
No, I did not, but I know I've been eyeing it up for a while, and I am really surprised actually to see this one breaking its low. I was really hoping for a hold of this with Zoom, and that's unfortunate to see right now. It looks like the next major support coming up now is going to be somewhere right around 242 to 240. So you know, we're pretty far away from that. It's around a 30-point drop down to 240, and it's just not looking good right now, Mike. That break of support, their outlooks have been bad. Their earnings went terrible last time, and yeah, it's just not a good sign, right? Well, the earnings weren't bad. Like I said, though, the outlook is more of what Zoom's been looking at, and it's just unfortunate to see this right now. And I'm wondering how low it's going to go. You know, people have been talking a lot about this stock that it's not going to do as well since COVID's kind of going away and stuff, but man, it's just, I did not think that they'd be breaking support or going this low.
Yep. And then we have Sean saying banks like the injected capital to invest. Yeah, I mean, I feel like no matter what happens with rates, they're going to find a way to make money. You know, obviously, if rates rise, they will make more from the loans they give out. But then again, if rates stay low, they will make money in other ways. And as we could just see by looking at their charts, they've been doing very well, especially stocks like JP Morgan or companies like JP Morgan. They've been doing very well over the past couple years, even with rates so low.
Yeah, and people have been arguing also that with the rates low, it actually is creating more lenders because more people are coming in to borrow. And it's just, you know, everybody's looking at these low rates and they're just trying to get into the market right now rather than while the rates are high. And you know, maybe that's just what's been so great for the banks. You know, people are really taking advantage of that. And I that's probably, you know, why the housing market's been so great the past couple of years, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So looking at other things, I mean, JP Morgan's actually, it has a ton of momentum to start the day. So definitely lots of eyes on that one. Delta Airlines isn't doing too bad. They're up like 1.5% on the day. RCL's not doing bad. Facebook's back in the green. DraftKings is trying to go in the green again. Looking at the SPY overall, it's trying to come up there, Tom. You know what I mean? Like, if we look at SPY, it's not like it's just like a total, like, complete market sell-off. Like, it's not going down without a fight.
Yeah, it's really not. And it actually pulled back, bounced right off of this like 442 intraday support and also right on the SMA and came right back up. And that's not a terrible sign. And like you said, they hit off this resistance at 443 and we're kind of coming back up and retesting it right now. So we could possibly see a break here. You know, we've seen this time and time again where the market has this up and down movement like this and then ends up breaking it later in the day. So would not be surprised if we went up through there. And especially with a lot of these stocks starting to turn green again, you know, like we're seeing a lot of stocks trying to turn back up, like like you mentioned, Facebook. We're even seeing like McDonald's coming back. Like you said, the banks are doing very well today. And some stocks that are red, unfortunately, are some stocks that might not affect the overall market quite as much, but they affect more of like growth stock traders, kind of like BLNK not looking good today, CGC not looking good. But we're seeing like the bigger stocks in the market kind of trying to go back to green, though, like we said, the banks and, Boeing and some of those like higher cap stocks.
Very interesting. And then Sean said, yeah, the bank I work for just started doing home loans. First time ever. So, yeah, very interesting. There's a ton of demand for them. Like Tom said, with rates so low, it's definitely having a lot of effects on the market and even just the financial industry overall. So, good stuff there. And thanks for sharing that, Sean. We have JB saying WYNN CEO was positive on China. So WYNN, it's rebounding nicely. My problem with it is, like, for short-term trades, is the implied volatility. Like, the options are kind of like relatively expensive right now, both the calls and the puts. So in my opinion, there's only two ways to play this: either just grabbing shares and like holding for like a couple weeks or a couple months, or just selling puts.
Yeah, definitely. I think that'll probably be the way to go, is to sell some puts on this. If you could get like the 80 strikes or something, it looks like a pretty good support down here. And honestly, people always talk about this stuff, Mike. Like they always say, like, if there's a gap on the chart, we'll have to fill that eventually. People say that all the time. And look at this gap back here on Win, all the way back at the back in last November. Little gap to the upside, and look at this. We actually filled the gap perfectly just now, down to this $80 support. Just a pretty funny technical. Everyone's always talking about these gaps, but with the way we kind of filled that, though, it looks pretty good. We filled that, came right down to this $80 support, and I feel like I'm with Mike. It's a good like maybe 3-month hold or even longer. Like for me, I would like to buy this and hold it for a couple of years, to be honest.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's more of like a couple year hold. That would be like the safer way to go, in my opinion. And then we have Gabriel saying CHUY is up 7%. So it looks like all these restaurant companies are booming today. I know CHUY got upgraded, but if we also look at like CAKE, which is a cheesecake factory, they are up like 3% today. They were up more. And if we look at PLAY, this is Dave & Buster's, which is up like almost 4% on the day. So it looks like we're seeing a lot of growth and a lot of upwards movement out of some of these stocks that didn't have a full recovery yet. You have stocks like Dave & Buster's and the Cheesecake Factory, but at the same time you have stocks like RCL or like these cruise lines or even these airlines. So I feel like we're seeing another rotation back into these recovery plays. Over the past couple months, it's been all tech, but I think it's about time that we see this recovery back into these stocks that have not like fully exploded yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I like how you pointed out Play and a couple of those other stocks that people might not really think of these as mainly like recovery plays, but they got killed during COVID and they look almost like the airlines on the chart. So that's the main reasoning for this. And it looks pretty good to the upside, honestly, Mike. Hopefully it ends up recovering pretty good. And I know Dave & Buster's is pretty good. And what was that other ticker you said? CAKE, Cheesecake Factory, actually popping up today as well. That's very interesting, up 3.2% or yeah, 3.2%. That's actually a pretty good rise. And they're right on that like 44 support. I really hope that these recovery stocks can get back up, especially like Cheesecake Factory and some of those others. Because I know during COVID, Mike, whenever they had those huge crashes, I mean, there was talks of bankruptcy and stuff with a lot of these companies.
Yeah, for sure. All right, then we have Irangel saying thoughts about SAM. So it is down a little bit today. To be completely honest, I have not been following this company too much, but the chart looks brutal.
Yeah, this actually looks really, really bad to the downside. And I don't know what caused this to happen. I'll have to read on this earnings report because it looks like on this earnings, they fell from like $950 all the way down to like $700. So that's a pretty bad drop there. And I'll definitely have to read into it, but their EPS isn't too bad though. I will say that. Oh, look at that, Mike. They were expected to have a 7 EPS and they only had 4.75. So that was a terrible loss on the earnings there. And it looks like just overall though, it's kind of by support again. And I don't know. I don't feel like this company is going to go anywhere anytime soon, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to buy it with the way they're dropping.
Yeah, I have no idea what's going on with this one. And what I find very interesting is, all right, the last earnings report may have been like not the best, but you look at the one before that, and they were only expected to have like a $2.40 EPS, and they came in with $5.20. So like, you know what I mean? And it still fell.
Yeah, it's such a weird scenario with Samuel Adams here. We'll definitely have to read into it. I bet you they just had like a bad outlook or, or maybe something with like production delays, like with COVID or something. That might be something that happened, or maybe like a worker shortage. I mean, anything could have happened in this type of market. But honestly, I feel like for the long term, this might be a decent little pickup. It is expensive though, $525, but it really has exhausted a lot of its move and it is down by support. So I would say for the next like 3 years, it's not bad to average in, but I just don't like it for options right now with the way it dropped.
All right. And then we have Max saying, just bought the dip on plug, hoping for another good move next week. It has a lot of momentum, so I don't think it's a bad play. It's definitely holding its ground, and it'll definitely be on my watch list.
Yeah, me too. Plug, BLNK, CHPT. I think they'll all do pretty good next week. And they did have such great weeks this week that we have to look at it just a little bit of consolidation here. And we're seeing that with Plug today, really consolidating down. And I don't really see them popping back up above 2750 today or anything, but I do like them for the next few weeks to next few months. I feel like Mike said, a lot of these stocks like tech have been really ripping up lately, but some of these stocks like Blink, CHPT, DraftKings, even they've been getting really hit the past like few months. So I feel like that they could end up getting a pretty good recovery eventually.
Good stuff. And then let's take a look at BYND. This is Bynd. This one has been on my watch list for like the past couple months. Like it's just been struggling, and it like Tom, do you have any like levels for us or like anything you're seeing with this one?
There's a huge long-term support down here right around $100. And let me go on the intraday. I know I had put a previous resistance here right around 113, or I should say it was support, I guess. And it looks like we ended up falling below that today to the downside. So I would look at this in more of a bearish sense than I would bullish right now. But it looks like there's another decent support coming up around 104. And then before that, 108. So there is a few levels to look for today. I'll go ahead and draw these out on my chart here. I feel like it could have some good intraday moves possibly to the downside. Like I could really see this possibly retesting 108 or something maybe later on today. And Beyond's just not looking too good right now on the daily. It's really turning back over, which is unfortunate to see. And I feel like over the next few years, they could do pretty good. But right now, I'm not too bullish with the movement I'm seeing.
Gotcha. All right. Looking at everything else, like what stocks are you watching? Like what news? Like I know there's a lot going on in the market. And guys, let us know what stocks you guys are watching. Let us know what stocks are on your watch list. Let us know what stocks you're looking to trade. Let us know in the live chat. But Tom, what do you have your eyes on?
I've been keeping my eyes on a couple stocks lately, like AMD. It's been getting really close to that $100 support, and today's been really crazy, but it hasn't had too much movement. I know Nike had a crazy move yesterday with earnings, and I was kind of eyeing them up today at open, and they did continue down, but not as much as I might have thought they might have with that huge drop to the downside. Man, Nike has a huge gap to fill here on the daily chart. There's a big gap between 135 and like 150. And it looks like we just broke below 150 today and we broke below the 100 SMA. So it's like a double whammy for me right now. I could see Nike possibly, maybe not filling this whole gap, but I could see it going down for a couple more days since these earnings went south. Never good to see a bad move out of such a good stock like Nike on earnings. And I could just see it going down for a few days. But besides Nike, the main ones moving the past few days, Mike, are these plays like RCL, CCL, a lot of these recovery plays, Boeing, a lot of these plays that have been, I shouldn't say off of people's radar, but, a lot of people have been scared to buy these stocks like RCL and CCL lately. They're actually recovering up very, very nicely. And they're right at this $90 resistance. And who knows, if we get a big break up above that, we could see a pretty big intraday move again.
Good stuff. And then we need some levels for Vicky on DraftKings. So DKNG, it finally went in the green again. What do you have for us?
Yeah, there we go. I actually have a lot of levels on DraftKings daily chart. I feel like they have actually posted some of the better technical levels than a lot of the other stocks have in the market. But they have a really good support down here right around $51. We bounced off of that and we held that very well. $50 is another support, but 51 has also been bounced off of plenty of times before. And it looks like this might be a good bottom here for DraftKings. And there was a huge resistance at 65. And I'm personally seeing a pretty big channel here between 50 and $65. And I think if we buy towards the lower end of the channel with shares at around $52 or around $50, and we just slowly wait for it to get back up to 65 or even break that, I think it could be a great level for the long term. Next closest resistance I'm seeing is going to be right around $55 to $56. We can see on the intraday chart here, it's actually more of around 56. So watch out for that to the upside. But I will say I like it off this $50 support, Mike. And a lot of these support and resistances have been playing very, very well. Like the last time we were at the resistance at 65, we had hit it 3 other times in the past and then went straight down on it again. So I would not be surprised to see support holding up again either, right around 50. Like I said, this stock loves technicals and it looks like it's bouncing very well off of them.
Good stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that looks like a pretty good setup. I love it for the long term. I'm just doing a quick scan, and it looks like we are seeing a couple more stocks turn green. You know, you got DraftKings, Redfin, Facebook, of course, RCL, UPS. The Dow's looking green. The SPY's looking green. So it's great to see that. But, you know, besides that, I mean, there's not much like else that's really moving. I saw GM was popping off pretty well.
Was it really? I mean, that's a pretty big surprise. Yeah, wow, look at that. That's a great move back to the upside. I know they had that bad news, Mike, earlier in the week with those production delays or something like that. Ended up sending them to the downside a little bit. So wasn't too good to see that. But this recovery's actually been great, Mike. They had that big gap, and ever since that gap, they just went straight back up. So that's awesome. I wonder how Ford's doing. They generally move the same exact way. And yeah, it looks like the same exact setup with Ford. And honestly, Mike, you know, these stocks are in these very strange patterns where they have these huge upside moves and they slowly slide off. And then they have a huge upside move once they hit support again. And it kind of seems like we're in that, we're almost at the end of that like sell off, and we're almost back into the beginning of this upside move again. And I think if we can hold this level around $13 or $12.50 on Ford and GM, I think we could get some pretty nice moves back up. So I would honestly eye these ones up, guys. I think they look like pretty good swings over the next couple months.
All right. And then we have JB saying, how would you play oil? So, and this is just my opinion, you know, like you can definitely disagree with me, and you probably do, Tom, but to me, like, I don't want to be holding like any oil stocks for like the next couple of years. I just feel like there's going to be a lot other sectors that are going to do a lot better than it, specifically like electric vehicles and then like artificial intelligence and, you know, even like sports betting and, you know, you could even say like the MJ industry. So I just feel like there's a lot other better opportunities out there than basically any oil stock. Another thing to keep in mind is I know that like the world is just shifting to like greener energies and stuff like that. So I would only play oil for the short term, and that's just my opinion. And there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with it.
Yeah, and I would honestly agree with you, Mike. It kind of seems like, you know, I'm with you. Like oil is definitely getting phased out, and EV and stuff is getting more of phase back into the market. And it's going to be a big deal. You know, that's going to take a lot of oil business away, obviously. And I don't think, you know, a lot of people are saying like that it's not really going to take business away and oil is still always going to be around. And, you know, of course it's always going to be around, but it's just not going to be around in the same sense that it is right now. And for me, you know, oil's actually had such a good recovery, Mike, that it almost looks like, it almost reminds me of like Apple right now or like Microsoft. You know, it's pretty overextended. We're past the highs of COVID even. And, you know, we're at $73 a barrel. Like that's pretty high. You know, like if we look at oil's longer term chart here, going back a long time, like on the max weekly, like, of course, like after '08, there was some really bad scenarios where oil was getting pretty high, like $100 a barrel and stuff like that. But right now, it kind of seems like oil's in that uptrend again and like it wants to go back up. But I'm more with you. I don't think I would buy and hold these stocks like Exxon or like CVX or anything like that for the long term. Now, I think it's good to buy CVX maybe like on support, for example, like how we just double bottomed at $94. If you wanted to pick up some shares at 94 and then maybe hold them up the next 110 resistance or something, I think that could be a great way to go. But I don't think I'd buy these and hold them for 10 years either. It's really expected to get phased out. And the main thing is just the consumer, the main consumers of oil. I mean, it might not be vehicles, like obviously factories and stuff consume quite a bit, but a lot of people are going to be switching over to these EV cars. Ford and GM have even announced that half their fleets are going to be electric cars. And I'm with you, Mike. I don't disagree at all. I kind of see that the oil market could kind of get phased out too. And I love playing oil in the short term. For me, I actually love playing oil off of news. Like I always see every week there's crude oil inventories from the US and stuff like that. And you can get some awesome moves out of playing crude oil in the short term with Exxon and Mobil or CVX. They generally move with oil news, but the best ones are like GUSH. Like, man, if you would have timed GUSH right this week, you could have a very nice gain from this double bottom of $68 back to the upside. And that's how I would play it, is more of short-term plays, kind of like what Mike said. In the long term, I would definitely look more at holding stuff like maybe like CHPT, BLNK, stocks like that, because just imagine like all the Chevron gas stations now, who knows, 10 years from now, we might have Blink charging stations or something. It might be crazy.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching today's stream. We had a great time, and the market's all over the place. So definitely be prepared for more volatility throughout the day. But again, thank you guys so much for joining, and have an amazing rest of your day.